Uh,
Okay.
okay, welcome to Potentials. And today I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves so that you pop up on camera. Otherwise, we won't see you. But I have my guests here today, my beautiful, beautiful souls that I love and cherish very much. Um, my two friends. First, I will introduce Kat.
Hi, I'm Kat. What am I going to say? Well, maybe it'll just come up in conversation because this is going to be a really interesting conversation today about a very charged topic. So we'll see what comes up.
Yes, very good. And my dear friend, Christine, who has been on my show several
Hello.
times.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Love having these chats. I'm Christine. For those of you who don't know me, I've done a couple chats with Elijah before.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Linda, Lija, whatever.
and and yeah, I'm excited for today's topic because I have been told that I'm an idealist. Almost to the point where people think I come across as entitled, but it's not that at all. It's more of a knowing that we as humans are special, each and every one of us. And there has been certain things set up around us to lead us to believe other than that. And so this conversation I felt had a lot of spaces in there where we can build on to who we are as humanity without all of the I guess stories that have come into our lives, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
Yeah, how do
Awesome.
we deconstruct, what's been put on top of who we are and how do we find that?
Right. And what are the stories and what's true? What's real? That's where I'm at right now. I have no idea. I have no idea what's really real. What's really true? What is truth? Right. And that's the age old question that's always been asked. And I used to think that was a silly question because obviously, duh, I mean, you just look around and see what's true. Like, what kind of question is that? Now it's like, no, reality is very blurred lines at this point. Nobody, it's like a hologram, right? How do you know? You feel like I feel literally like I am in a video game right now.
I want to share something to just kind of help people because this is sort of like a cognitive dissonance, and this really relies
Yeah.
on where you were born, where you were born and where you grew up, and who your family was, and how that initial forming stage. And this is what happened to me in my personal experience. So I grew up in the States. I grew up in Idaho, which is considered a red state, but it's kind of purple because the capital is quite blue. And when I grew up in the 90s, there was very good communication between the two. So it was a very interesting space to grow up in. And I thought I grew up with a lot of decent education. Like I had teachers that went above and beyond. When I was in fourth grade, my teacher decided that, and had been working on it for a while, but ours was the year that we got to do this, that the monarch butterfly should be the state insect of Idaho. So she took us through that whole process. We wrote to our congressman. We went to the state capitol building, which in Boise is really cool because it mirrors the capitol building in DC. So like as little kids, man, we thought this was the coolest thing, right? Because we say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, proud of our country. Like no adult is going to do us wrong, right? We trust everything that's going on. And then the monarch butterfly was put in through Congress as the state insect. So we got to see our efforts go into fruition. So I kind of grew up with this like ideal of like you can always find the good in the situation, right? Fast forward, I thought I was going to be going to school for like environmental studies and all of that. But then I ended up doing religious studies and biblical studies. And I went to a liberal arts college, so I took a lot of like random classes on the side that did that. But it just kind of kept my mind sort of open, thinking that I had an open mind, right? This is where I'm trying to get to is that I thought that I was pretty open minded. So I moved to New Zealand for 10 years. And when I first went down there, I'll fully admit I did not realize New Zealand had their own currency. I had no idea that the plugs would be different in another country than the States. These little things, fortunately, the University of Otago I went to sent this great little welcome pamphlet out because they obviously knew international students had issues with this. And here are all these things you needed. But I had no context to associate these things with, right? So that was my first being like, do I actually have the skills to succeed? Like, I don't understand. Then I get down to New Zealand. They speak English, right? You would think that we would be able to communicate the same. They speak English. I should be able to sort of just fit in there. It's a very Western dominated culture too. It should be all right. Well, little things like phrases. So in the States, if I say, man, I lucked out, what do you think? Go ahead, answer me.
Oh,
Things
well,
work out your way.
yeah, you were lucky.
Right?
Things are
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Completely opposite in Commonwealth countries.
Ah.
Go to the UK, go to Australia, go to New Zealand, you say you lucked out, and they think you're out of luck.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
bringing back to the original of how do you find your truth is you need to be aware of things that can just mold just because of where you are. So if you were born on an island, man, you're used to the sun, you're used to the salt air, you're used to that humidity, all of these things, very good, nutritious for your body. There's certain things you don't have to do because you were born on an island. If you were born in good old Idaho in a desert, there's different things I have to do in our bodies because humans are amazing. Our bodies have adapted to that. So even if I move myself away from this climate into a different one, I still have to adapt certain things. And I think that's the truths that people need to take on board, that yes, they are truths, but there are truths in a way of it's a way for us to understand how to use this, for lack of a better term, spaceship that we've kind of got and how to navigate with it, but then how to understand how other people are navigating their spaceships and understanding the language and everything around that. So long story short, the way that I started doing it is I did a couple things. I figured out what are my truths, what are things that I cannot argue, that I know are truths, even if the doubts in my head want to argue them. And one of them is that I'm a beautiful woman. Anybody
Yes,
can
you
say
are.
whatever they want. I know that's true, no matter how much I want to argue it in myself, because that's how I was born. I know that, and there's no reason why I would be ugly, because that right there, for anyone who's listening, beautiful and ugly, those are the same things, but just someone's opinion of putting that on something. So
Wow.
you can make
Yes.
your own opinion, right?
Yeah.
Like there's the joke of like, what's the difference between a flower and a weed?
Yeah.
Right.
Just how someone identified it, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same, right? But you just got to flip it. And so I started with that, and then I said I'm loved, because I wouldn't be here if I wasn't loved.
Right.
No matter what is around me and no matter what I'm feeling, those are true. So I started with that. And then because I didn't put too many truths in my head that I had to argue or whatever, I could start kind of seeing through the other things where it was people's opinions of how they wanted me to live and where they wanted me to go versus what the actual truth is of how it could work. And that's kind of how I ended up with my idealist state and how I started deconstructing my truth. And I just talked for a really long time, so I'm going to pass.
Well, that's a really interesting perspective. And that's really the word, we're just so unique and come from different places. I had a very little civic awareness. Was not taught any civics in school. I came from from the Chicago suburbs. So you would think I would, very, very large high school. I just was very unaware, but I had my own inner knowledge and inner callings. I was pretty to myself. I was an athlete, kept to myself, but I was also very spiritual, and I didn't share that with anybody. And I think everything in my life was kind of revolving around that, even though I never really spoke about it. So every perspective I had, whether your intuition would tell you if somebody's telling you the truth or not, regardless of the words coming out of their mouth, and I just think that this world really is like a matrix. I really believed in this solid structure, that this is who we are, this body, this personality, these actions, these stories, that we go through. And, I've been slowly deconstructing all of those stories, that it's like, that's all temporary. All of these stories, all of these relationships, they're permanent in the fact that they teach us something very, very real. But I really do, after all of this time, really think we really are, just to kind of say it bluntly, but it's still very abstract. We're all the same being in all of these different bodies. Like, we're all sharing this life together as a single being, but we're in all these different bodies, having all these different experiences, and we bring them back home and we compare notes. Like, what did you learn? I don't know. What did you learn?
Right.
And
Because
I
we're all
had this,
part of consciousness, and consciousness has just split itself into all these different fractals.
yeah, fractal consciousness. And, there's so many different ways to look at that. But to look at this world and how we interact with each other and how we interact with ourselves and what is truth, that's difficult to define if we see this world as more real than what's beyond this world.
Right.
And as soon as we see this world as a reflection of reality, like this is like a movie playing out and we're playing our parts, and it appears like we're making all these choices, but what part of ourselves are making these choices? And is it our physical body that believes it's real and it experiences all the hurt and the pain and the joys and the happinesses? Is that what's making all these choices, or is there something deeper inside of me that sees through these veils, of apparent physicality, what's really making these choices and these decisions and experiencing pain and sorrow and happiness and joy and all of the beautiful and ugly things in life. So I don't know if I have an answer. It's just my perspective is like the matrix. What's real, what's not real, and how do I figure it out?
Yes, that's pretty much what I was going with, and what I was thinking is because we're now just beginning to find out that our history was not what we thought it was. All the things that we were taught in school were not the things that really happened. Not that I was really a big history fan. I never, for some reason, it never really resonated with me, and I always kind of felt it was a little bit sus. So I never was into it that much, but I always thought about other cultures. I always found them fascinating. And so I wanted to know, and I wanted to know especially about ancient cultures. And for some reason, I was really drawn to that. But I don't think that even some of those things are right that I was being taught. You know what I mean? Like, because there was always some kind of a bias or slant to it based on whatever my teacher or professor was trying to, was thinking of, what he believed.
I
So
completely agree.
so it was kind of hard to ever really know. So that was the thing. Like, yes, there are so many different ideas and thoughts out there, and you can embrace them all and pull what you want from them or whatever. But going forward with, the kids that are growing up now, what are they going to be taught? What kind of history are they going to know about? What's going to change between now and 20 years from now? That, what are they going to grow up to believe or think or feel? I mean, that's kind of what I'm wondering. That's what I've been thinking about lately. What does the future hold? And I plan on being around for it too.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to see. I do feel like I have an investment in it.
Yeah,
I don't have. Go ahead, Christine.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I completely agree, and I think that spiritually we're seeing it through these little star seeds that are popping through. I mean, you just gotta scroll through TikTok a little bit, and you can see children talking about their past lives or talking about how to work with energy or music to feel better in their days and everything like that, and having parents that are encouraging that conversation. I think that's one of the ways that Like you said, Kat, we're all part of one big, I'm going to add the word organism on this earth, you know, kind of like trees, how the roots are all connected and everything. We're all connected because we all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water, no matter where we are on this planet. And it doesn't matter what you follow, whether it's a globe or it's flat or whatnot. The air and the water is circulating in the same place, and we're all sharing that. So we're all one big organism. And as we, you know, move forward with that, I think we're seeing there's like truths are coming out in a way that we couldn't have even planned for, because there was such a stop to them for so long. So
Yes.
it was like like, you know, if you had an organism that wasn't quite growing correctly, you're going to see like a growth spurt on like some side somewhere. And I feel like, you know, the generations that are having these children, they went through a lot of impact of not necessarily being able to do what they're passionate about,
Yeah.
something truly love. They were told instead that you needed finances to be financially secure, so put that
Yeah.
on the back burner. That's more like a hobby. And so when these those children that are now adults are seeing their kids with some amazing kind of ability, they're like protecting it. Like, it's like, you know what? They get this. They get to
Yeah.
have this space because I didn't. And I know that it's all a bit of a shambles because I did what they said, and I still don't own a house. I still have like bills upon bills, and I still have this. So you know what? I'll give the kid the space that they have to grow. And I think we're seeing that evolution in a way
Yes.
what it seems. Yeah.
I like that. It's like a pendulum swing. You know, you
Yeah.
swing too far this way, eventually it's going to go too far that way. And then hopefully, you know, we're going to end up in a place of balance. Because were you going to say something, Linda?
Well, I was just wondering, did you see that? Because it reminds me of that video that I saw on, well, it was on TikTok, but I don't know if you see TikTok, but I might have posted it in the chat, but it's the one about the turnings and how every 20 years it's called a turning, where every every 100 years, you know, every centennial, there's a new like chunk, and it's every 20 years of that 100 years something happens, and they call each one of those 20 years a turning. So with the first beginning part of the century is things are looking up, there's an uptick, things are getting better, there's been a change, a transformation that has caused that to happen. So the first 20 years are going pretty well because it's changing, there's a transformation. The next 20 years are the golden years. So that would have been like the last centennial, it would have been century, it would have been you know, the 40s through the 60s, where there was that baby boom and everything happened that was like people could afford homes, and the economy was doing well, you know. And then the next 20 years after that, there was like a revolution, things changed. So that's the next one. And then the next 20 years are crisis, which is where we are now.
Right.
But we're the 20 years right before the change, where everything happens again and it's better. So like we're apparently, according to this, we're in that period of time that's towards the end of the 20 years that's crisis. So it's supposed to end in like 2028-ish, and then everything's supposed to get better after that. But
That's a,
what do you, I'm sorry.
it's a really, really interesting way to look at it. I just wonder about smaller cycles and then larger cycles.
I
And
was just gonna tell you, Kat. So I'm trying to find the image while you were chatting, so that we could share it. But
Yeah.
yes, 100%, Kat. There are the smaller cycles and the larger ones, are we usually hear that back in the Bhagavad Gita over in
Kali
India.
Yuga. It's called a
Yep,
Kali
Kali
Yuga.
Yuga.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about these ones is they're both merging.
Yes.
They're
oh,
both they're
Right.
both the big one and that little one.
Right.
Right now. It's
when are
Right.
they supposed to merge? When are they supposed to
well,
merge?
like it's merging as in the ends. They're doing their cycle at the same time.
Yes.
It's the
So it's
little
kind of a
cycles
gradual
in
thing
while
where
the big one
they're
is.
They're actually merging right now.
Yeah.
We're like in the process of the merge, which is why there's so much happening, why so much is going on, because we're right in the process of them merging. So it's looking like it's going to be 2028, 2030 is when it starts to really impact.
That makes so much sense, but there's also another thing that's kind of merging at this time, and that's this revolution in consciousness, aware that we're you were going to say that again too, huh?
No, I just love that was your question, because I was 100% on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why no one's getting the timeline? Well, my theory is the reason why the timeline, we can't know the exact date, and this goes back to a lot of spiritual things where they say try not to predict. I do believe it is affected by our spiritual consciousness as well.
Yes.
So we can push it faster or slow it down, depending on what we're doing as humanity.
This is where the potential comes in. This is where we're in that area of potential. We have the potential to speed it up. And that's what this show is about. I'm trying to make it happen faster. Let's make
we're doing it. Yeah.
What can we manifest? What can we think about to make it happen faster?
Well, in terms of, I want to bring up the other side of this also, and that's, we're physical beings right now. I feel like we're moving into almost, maybe this is too far out for some, but I feel like we're physically going to be changing. Our consciousness is going to be expanding to where, maybe we can read each other's minds. Maybe certain skills and abilities will start to come out. It's like physicality will start to transform around us in ways that we don't really understand, because we're almost merging physicality and non-physicality. At least that's what it feels like to me, whether it's scientifically proven or not. I feel like we're in the middle of that. So it kind of takes a step beyond these shorter cycles and even the long cycles. And maybe it's the long cycle too, and we weren't there to see it, but there's something else going on right now that's different than any other time, that at least that we've heard about.
Right.
So and in terms of manifesting, there's all kinds of books and techniques on manifesting, but what does that mean right now with what we're going through right now, with the changes happening within us right now?
Yes.
That's it's like I think, have to learn above and beyond anything else how to focus our thoughts, how to stay clear, and we're so used to being distracted by money, by politics, by health, by whatever. There's so much imbalance, there's so much divide and conquer going on in the world. So how do we find this place of stability, of oneness, of unity? And we can start with the three of us right here. We're almost reading each other's minds. Yeah.
Right. It's that being in agreement, right?
Yeah.
It's that
harmony,
when two or three or more are gathered together in agreement, it kind of manifests something, doesn't it?
I think so. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting like that. Well, I definitely agree. I mean, all you have to do is talk about music. What's a chord?
Oh, yeah.
3 notes together.
Yes.
Yes. Bigger, that goes. So I definitely agree with that. And I was thinking about what you were saying, Kat, like in regards of like, I guess if I was gonna just taking all of this and like, how do we kind of like push it forward? And with, I think it's with those things that we're seeing that are coming, that are kind of like a bit more obvious. We're hearing people talk about ghosts. We're hearing people getting like more of these like premonition sort of things, and sometimes freaking them out, or just having random things. I saw a really funny TikTok where this lady was like grumpy about something, and then like flippantly like is like, all right, got it, this, and then like the exact same thing happened like right after, and she's like, whoa, I need to actually watch my mouth, because if you're hearing what I'm saying, I'm in some trouble. those kind of stories are happening a lot, and they're happening with like what would be considered just the regular people walking down the street. It's not
Right.
coming from a church pulpit. It's not coming from a stage somewhere. It's not coming from a political office of having these insights. We're getting it from just like someone who's just down the street. And I
Right.
think that's part of this spiritual sort of merging and breaking. And what really caught me is I was like, if we wanted to see where this stuff is really working the best, then it's those miracles. It's the miracles we hear about. It's how they tell us that, if the world would be destroyed and there'd be the apocalypse, would all be all for naught and looting and horrible things were happening. Okay, go look at Hawaii right now. Go look at Maui. Are they
Right.
doing that? No, they are being told by the government that they can't, they have to live in one hotel somewhere else on the other side of the island, but they're still expected to get their kids to school that's on the other side with just the one road that's going, and there's no so they're creating communities where they carpool. They're making
Right.
sure everybody's fed. I recommend Hawaii Real Estate on YouTube for anybody that's interested in knowing how they can help with Maui. He will have specific people and specific families, and you can Venmo them directly.
Wow.
So what's that all about? Why aren't they all dead and killing themselves?
Right.
So
Right.
what is humanity? I believe the lie that we've been told is that we want to kill each other and we're tribal.
Yes.
They are lying to us. They're trying to plant ideas in our head of the way things are, but that's not the way things are. And we need to stick
Absolutely.
to our hearts. And
Absolutely.
I don't know how to resolve these conflicts going on around the world, but they're not organic. They are made. And we need to find a way to counteract this somehow.
My favorite
like
is that song by I See One Day, where it has the line where it's pretty much just like, if we all chose to lay down our guns,
right,
there would be no more fighting, because we don't care. We're
we're
being
not the
told
ones
to fight by someone else.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah. I was just talking to somebody earlier today, like I went on that rant the other day about how we get blamed as humans for like fucking up the planet, right? And I'm saying that we're not the ones who did it, right? So I was talking to somebody about that. She says, "Do you know anybody who's making plastics in their home? Are you sitting at home making plastics? No."
Buy them.
We're not. Are we driving? Are we taking corporate jets, and polluting the air? Are we actually the ones who are doing all this stuff? Who are the ones doing it? We're not, right?
I'm gonna add
But we're the
something
ones who get blamed for it. We're the ones who get like, you're doing everything to this planet. Like humanity is destroyed. No, humanity is not. Humanity doesn't want to destroy this planet. We want to live on it. We want to survive.
We've been made to be lazy. We've been made to be lazy and have everything given to us, and we don't check to see where things come from or how they're made or
it's packaged. It's packaged in plastic. Everything is packaged. Try to buy something that isn't packaged in plastic. It's kind of hard.
There are options. Things can be
made.
There
are, but they're rare. You know what I mean? And people who don't have money can't really afford to not go to the Dollar Tree.
Correct.
So they're buying everything that's wrapped in plastic. So when they make people feel like there's a scarcity and that they can't go anywhere else, they have to shop at Walmart, they have to shop at Dollar Tree because they can't afford anything else. Those are the people that feel like they don't have options,
the manufactured problems. They are manufactured problems that I think to keep people divided, to tell you the truth.
Because when I got an answer for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Manufactured.
You go 100%. For
it. HOA. The fact that you are not allowed to have a rooster as well as chickens. The fact that you have to maintain your garden to a certain level. There's only certain foods you're allowed to grow in your own backyard.
Wow.
So 100% manufactured, because they told us after World War II, and I just want to be clear for anyone listening internationally, we're very US centric right now with what's going on. I know there are communities out there that have figured this out. Like in New Zealand, there were so many community gardens and there were plants that I could just eat off the street. No problem. Rosemary growing like just all over the place, right? And you could just pick it up. No problem. So so we're definitely quite US centric, but unfortunately, because of how dominant the corporations are in this country, it is infecting internationally. So that's why I mean, for me personally, that's why I focus on it so much, because I don't want it to bleed out too far.
Right. And
But
we weren't allowed to collect rainwater. I don't know if
yeah,
that's true across the whole country, but
It's
I know there's
not.
some
It's
places
a lot
where
of
you're not
places.
allowed to do that, which
Correct.
is
A lot of
insane.
places. Yeah.
Yeah.
and I think if those things that they implemented since World War II, if they came to pass, where we actually saw cancer go away, where we saw people looking healthier, eating the foods that they recommended, if we actually saw what they said was going to happen back in the 1950s, when all these things got implemented and these rules and regulations changed, and they said, no, we're going to look after you, like, we're all happy now, we saw horrible things and the world's going to be a big happy place now, we're going to look after you. And as they try to start to implement that, if we saw any of that come to pass, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. We wouldn't
Right.
be going, okay, well, why did they tell us roosters aren't allowed? Oh, because it was a noise concern? Or is it just the fact that you want me to buy more chickens?
So
Yeah.
there's so many of these kinds of corporate control that controls our government, that controls, then governments around the world are in some kind of club, it seems. I think that we need to find a way to what's it called when we gather together, smaller together.
It's a grassroots effort.
We
Yeah.
need to make a grassroots efforts to kind of like, how do we join together? We got to find in a realistic way, not just an idealistic way. And food forests is a great place to start, start changing legislation so you can do it. There's so many things that we can start with. And I think it's so easy. I can go on rants about all the crap I see around the world, but I'm doing my best to stay focused on what I can do to make a change. It's not
Right.
easy, but maybe that's what we can talk about next time, is maybe brainstorm a little bit about.
Yeah. I see that like I grow herbs and stuff in my apartment. I mean, I don't even have a yard, but I
Right.
grow stuff here, and you can you can grow your own lettuce. I mean, you just take lettuce from the grocery store, put 2 toothpicks in it, stick it in water, and it'll sprout a whole new head.
Yeah, and also look at your local governments, and it's almost like they're in a club and it's hard to break into the club. Like, how do we get good people, in positions that can help make change too?
I
Yeah.
I would say also a big thing for personally, the biggest thing that I think would change is community gardens. If we actually
Yeah.
to that, community gardens, if you've got an extra patch of grass, I say this, I do not have a green thumb and I want to so bad. I want to understand. I am a person that I am so passionate about this because I know I'm lacking. I'm at a place in my life now where I realize if the apocalypse happened, I know I'd be all right, but far out, I would be learning a lot of new skills very
Mm.
quickly. But skills that I feel like had we grown as a society
Yeah.
properly, I would know them,
Right.
like
Right.
woodworking, gardening,
Yeah.
sewing. But
Yeah,
these,
know those in
right?
school. Why aren't they teaching
Exactly.
those?
These are all muscles that have atrophied, that
Right?
we all had this flex at one point and now we don't. And a lot of it was just, manufactured out of the schools. It was a manufactured effort to take it out. They removed music, they removed art, shop, whatever that other, I forget what that other thing was, home ec. Yeah, all of
Yeah.
those kinds of classes where you learned the basic living skills, the survival skills really were taken out. Now my kids, I put them in a survival camp, and it wasn't a bad one. It wasn't like they were made to do anything bad. It was a Amish camp. That was run by the Amish, and they taught them how to build yurts. They taught them how to hunt and forage. Not like animals, but like how to find food in the berries, whatever things in the woods.
Yeah.
And they taught them how to basically take care of themselves. How to start a fire. Um, so
I know.
I knew that they weren't learning that in school, so I found another way for them to learn it. So I feel like if we start doing stuff like that as a community and
Mhm.
teaching our kids that what they're not learning in school, they could learn, in another way.
I know that there are people in groups that are coming up with alternate educational systems and alternate ways of running businesses and how to bring everything together into community. It's just,
Right.
you know, they're just bits and pieces everywhere.
I think if you look for it, you'll find it. As Adam Hobbs likes to say, you have to look for it, you know, and when you look for it, you find it. So if you look hard enough, you will. So if this is something that you passionately want, you will find it. It is out there. I mean, me and Christine are fans of TikTok, and there's all kinds of interesting stuff that pops up on there all the time. And once you start looking at it, you get more of it. You attract more of it to you. TikTok is just another form of what's that manifestation? You know, like it's an algorithm. So the more you look at, the more you draw to you. So
and
start
with your
looking
emotions, yeah. So you get your focus, you get your emotions of love, and you know, you feel passionate about something. When you can feel passionate, stay focused on it. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I actually did get a 2-year certification in environmental landscaping, learned all about organic gardening. I almost started like a vertical green wall business.
Wow.
So it is quite possible. I looked into food forests and designs and stuff like that. So, you know, if we can find a way to get all of these groups to kind of come together, you know, or not, because at least they're starting.
Yeah, you know? And that's what I'm saying. If you look for it in your community, you probably have it and you don't even know.
You're probably right.
You could just Google it. I mean, the one thing that we could say about technology is that we do have all of our information at our fingertips. If you really want to find something, you can find it. So I'd say just start looking in those terms, you know.
The one thing that I would have to mention, and I just realized this because I was noticing our generations that are talking right now, we're willing to go out and look for community, but we're really the last generations that are doing that. So in these situations, we need to give context as to why it's a big deal. And everything. Like, I'm just trying to think about this, how to like layer it down to just say why things like this are important. And I think the coolest thing that would be to do, Kat, would be to create a database. So not necessarily make all these businesses have to like merge together. Just create a database where someone could just
make it easy.
Like, this is what's around, right?
What a great idea.
Yes, make it easy, because this is the thing. You're right about the next generation, and I'm not dissing them in any way at all. I think they're brilliant. I love the generations that are coming up right now are brilliant and amazing and intuitive, and I just love that. I'm not worried about them, to be honest, at all. I think they really have their shit together in some ways. But the thing that concerns me in a way is that they kind of need everything given to them, because they're so used to that. They're used to being able to just not even have to think about something or have to make a decision, because it's kind of being made for them by AI in a way, you know, like it's just, and so therefore just for them to become AI dependent is going to be very, very easy if they're not already, you know, because they're
friend. Yeah, I have a friend who is actually coming up with a plan to integrate the knowledge that Gen X or baby boomers have, because we were taught to work for things, and Generation Z, you know, who, you know, they have a different way of being, like you were saying, and they're used to having things given to them. Not all of them.
And the alphas are the newest generation.
I think they're just are they even in the workforce quite yet? I'm not sure, but it should be part of the educational system. Anyway, there are people working to tie all these together to kind of bring old knowledge, you know, to the younger generations, because we really do need to help bridge the gap.
It's kind of a practical knowledge.
Do you all understand why there's a gap between the working ethic and the not working ethic?
Well, I think it's the educational system that's been manipulated, but what do you think?
I think it's because what's the point?
Right.
Those kids their grandparents are still working right now.
Right. And millennials are another, the whole group that we forgot about, which are they're now turning.
I'm right in the between of millennials.
They're turning 40. So really, people think of millennials as really young, but they're not. And they're the ones who are really have had the shit end of the stick handed to them, you know, because they've had, and I know because I have daughters, and they are just like, you know, you're right. Why should we even try? Why should we even, like, we're fucked. So that's why
So
when
me,
I
the
first
work,
started
sorry.
with Dave with his group, that's why I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant. I asked him, I was like, are we fucked? You know, because he would know of anybody. His generation is the one that's really getting the worst end of it. So I said, are we fucked? And then he was the one who kind of gave us hope. They're like, well, we're going to try doing stuff, you know, that's what we're
Great
doing.
example. Great example. Why? So, what would you say about his work ethic?
Oh my God.
Right?
Dude
But
never
why is that?
stops
Why is that? What is he doing?
because he's passionate about what he's doing.
Exactly.
Yes. And
All
he
of this
knows
generation watch
he
their
does it when
parents and
nobody
their
else will,
no, no,
right?
hold on. All this generation, that his generation, they watch their parents and their grandparents and their
Right.
older siblings and their aunts and uncles work their heart out on something they hated
Yes.
to still be given nothing. There's
Right.
no 50 gold watch, 50-year
Right.
gold watch. There's no pension,
Right.
even with Social Security, that doesn't exist.
And like
Yeah.
you said, they're still
He,
working.
he is passionate about that. So he's got a good work ethic in that. I can tell
Absolutely.
you with the kids that I'm working with, because I work with some young ones, you know, or whatnot,
Right.
from 16 to like 24. And they all grew up in a very small town with
Yeah.
lots of like, you know, things that come with a very small local low economic. I found out that this county I live in Idaho is the most poverty stricken county in Idaho. I found out also that Idaho, I think, is ranked number 48 in the educational system now.
Wow.
And so you look at them and there's nothing,
Yeah.
no point for them. So
Oh, that's
why?
so sad.
Why? Oh, but you know what I do? As soon as I see a little spark, I and I tell them I am 20 years your senior, and I remember exactly where I was when I was there, and I listened to the people who told me what I needed to do. And I'm sitting here and I'm working with you. Follow your heart.
Yes. That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think, honestly, I think the same thing happened generational. I think the
Yes.
boomers, they witnessed World War II. They witnessed something beautiful where everybody decided to come up. And I don't know what that was. Oh, I think when I put my hand up, it doesn't pop up. Anyways, sorry. I was like, there's an orb, but then it was like a thumb on the blur. Okay.
I did
Anyway,
that,
for
yeah.
anyone who thought it was spiritual, no, it was technology. um, the boomers, they witnessed World War II. They fought, they triumphed, and they came back hoping to give their children an amazing experience. But then Vietnam happened. Why did Vietnam happen? World War II was supposed to be the last Great War. Okay, so their kids, this is my theory, 100% my theory. Their kids are like, you know what? I want to be like my parents. They fought the good fight. Let's do this. Even though the draft and all that happened, like, you know, ultimately at first when it started, people were stoked. Then they realized what it was really about, and they came back and they decided to use their voice, and it got smashed.
Yeah.
But
People
when
do
they
need a
had kids,
purpose.
yeah, when they had kids and their kids started using their voice and talking about their passion, you know, in the late 70s and 80s, they went, careful, use your voice too much, you'll get smashed. This is what I did to survive. Have a good
Um,
work ethic. You're going to make it through. It's going to be okay. Change what you can in your little space. But the oligarchs didn't have that mentality.
yeah.
So the 80s happen, we get our credit system. The 90s happen, the minimum wage stops there, doesn't change. Idaho is one of those states that still holds the $7.25 minimum wage. So
Wow.
when inflation has gone up, the music has gotten angrier. The generations are still trying to protect their kids to the point of now it's almost neglect. Safest thing to do is let them do what they can do to survive.
It's
That's
Yeah.
just a part of a bigger broken system,
exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
and it has followed it into the educational system. There are some good schools around there, But the vast majority of public schools these days have been taken over by people who want to teach about inappropriate things and not about real life, you know, and how to motivate people, how to create motivated, purpose-driven, you know, people. That's not what they're learning in school these days. And so I think that's a big part of the problem. They don't, if parents are working, somebody's got to give children some perspective on what life could be, give them some hope, give them some dreams.
School ever, like at least elementary to high school, ever being about anything that you really needed to know.
Right.
And they never taught you anything that was practical. So at least when I went to school. So it's just the way it's the system, and it was set up a certain way to do that. Yeah. And so really we just have to either homeschool our kids or start a whole new system, which is what
y'all said the community word earlier, and I think really that's what it comes back down to. You know, it's fine, whatever the institutions, you know, they're going to kind of keep doing their thing, and we can, as a community, join the PTA or PTO, whatever the, you know, the parent teaching organizations or whatnot. You can actually say stuff like, I think right now we're very much in that space of the ants kind of thing, where we don't realize how many of us there are, and the grasshoppers are convincing us that we have to stay low, but really there's way less of them than there are of us, and we just need to use our voice.
Well, and we need to get our courage back, you know, because we've been almost like beat into submission in some cases, in many ways. So we need to get our courage back and be good role models, I think.
Right. I agree. Well, ladies, I think that this wraps it up here. We've been talking quite a while, but it's been a great conversation, and I really appreciate you guys coming on. I think that everything that we talked about is doable. I don't see how, you know, we can't implement some kind of, you know, grassroots effort, like we said, like, you know, try to get people to look towards the future in a positive, hopeful way, and implement some changes that are going to be positive. So, yes,
I agree.
For feelings and your opinions. I love it. Thank you for coming on. There's a lot of potential here.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Oh, yes, thank you. And Christine, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
so we will see you guys around, and thanks everyone for listening. And again, we'll be back at some point, and ciao for now.